watch it. I might need Josh's phone. Two people watching. 3. 4.
Well, good evening. Thanks for watching. This is episode 7 of the Lockdown Lowdown. In half an hour's time, we will find out the latest that our incredible Prime Minister is going to deliver for us, and let's hope there's a little bit more clarity than there has been during the last week with leaked documents to journalists and stuff like that. And we've seen a massive breaking of the lockdown over this weekend, which doesn't help things going forward. We're going to follow the same format as usual. I'm going to cover some topics, and then at the end of those topics, we'll answer some questions. Obviously, we're going to be working within a timescale today so that everybody can shoot off and watch the Boris video at 7 o'clock on television. But until then, we'll cover some pointers. So what we're going to cover today, we're firstly going to cover about the boxing industry and what I think is coming next and various things that have happened. Announcements in the last week. We're going to move from that to cover the self-employed 80% payments and what you have to do to claim that if you haven't already done it, because the government have moved the goalposts slightly from that. We're going to cover about the housing issue. I've had a few questions about if I've already made an offer on a house but haven't exchanged contracts, what do I do? So I'm going to cover that because I think it's very important for anybody that's got an offer in on a house, especially if it's a new build. And then finally we're going to cover interest rates and literally, for those you've got time on your hands, for those of you with any sort of money in your bank accounts or building society accounts, what you should really be doing with them, because if you're not doing the right thing with that money, even on deposit, it's money down the drain, and I'm going to cover that with you at the end and give you some ideas of the interest rates you should be looking at for money on deposit. So we're going to start off with boxing. So I'm going to start off with one of my predictions that I would be very surprised if we do get boxing in July. I think the gyms need to be open for 8 weeks to be safe before boxing starts, and with gyms are not going to be open today by Boris. I think it's going to be very difficult for any behind the scenes boxing to start in July. That's without the issues that I've covered before about the medical situations and everything else. I do feel, my honest opinion is that I understand that boxing is going to be competing with football and a lot of other sports for live coverage on television, but sometimes you have to be realistic. Boxing is not football. You know, it's a life and death sport, and so is any combat sport, and you need to have a gym open well before that. It's okay being a professional footballer and playing football when you're 70% fit. It's not okay taking punches to the head when you're 70% fit. So I think we will find in time, as I've said before, that boxing won't be in July. It's not long ago when some of the promoters were trying to or thought they may be putting shows on in May, which was ridiculous. And obviously the boxing board again have put out their statement about potential boxing in July. I find it quite astonishing, but we'll know more when Boris releases his information today, and I might be proven wrong in half an hour's time, but I just can't see it. But I just think the boxing should just be saying September is when we're going to start, and it gives boxers a date, a time scale to aim at that is realistic, and then that would be asking for the gyms to open middle of July, which is possible, but then you've got a period where that could work. But this keep pushing the can down the line, I just don't think does anybody any favours. But I understand the frustrations of people in boxing when there isn't enough guidance from the government. But hopefully the guidance from the government at 7 o'clock today will ensure that when I'm on here next week we can talk something realistically about boxing timescales. Right, moving on from to the self-employed payments. The government have started to contact people this week and sending letters out to confirm that they, with instructions as to how they claim their 80% pay and whether they qualify. But a lot of people are not getting the letters. So there is a website on the gov.uk, or there is a site on through the gov.uk website, Anybody that is self-employed can enter their unique taxpayer reference number and your national insurance number. It will then tell you if you qualify for the 80%, and if you do qualify, it will give you a date upon which you can apply. So if you haven't had a letter and you're not sure, go onto that website and you can do it that way. Any problems, then give me a call, but it's very, very straightforward. But that's the system now. But even if you haven't had a letter, you can go in now, and they are starting to pay from this week, or starting to process from this week with payments due next month. So make sure, if you haven't had the letter, that you go in online and check. Very straightforward process. Okay, the housing question, which is, if I've made an offer on a house, what should I do? Well, let me tell you about stock markets, and I will come back to housing in a minute. Stock markets have what's called a futures index. So when the stock market closes, there is a futures index which basically they trade before they start trading. So it gives you an indication of what is going to happen when the market reopens. And there is no such thing in property. But in my opinion, it is likely when the market reopens that you will be able to buy properties at a discount of 10 to 20%. Estate agents will tell you they've got a plethora of new instructions ready to go out. The market is going to boom. I am prepared to say that I would be looking if I was buying a property to be looking at 10 to 20% off the margin. Probably nearer to 10, but definitely between 10 and 20. As far as new builds are concerned, I think that's even a bigger issue, because lenders such as Santander are now requiring a 40% deposit on new builds because they're so petrified about the market falling. So I would be suggesting that if you are in the market for a new build, or you've made an offer and you haven't spent any money as yet, or you haven't exchanged contracts, you should seriously reflect your position. I would normally say speak to your advisor, but not all advisors are capable of giving good advice, so I don't think that's necessarily a fair thing to say, but reflect on your position, because I think you will see there's a weakness in the market. If the property market was trading on futures now, it would definitely be lower than the price that you've already offered on the property. So I would definitely, if you're not committed, be taking a serious view on what I want to do when the market reopens. So it means get a discount. Another thing I want to deal with, or the last thing I want to deal with before I take any questions, is interest rates. Now, while you've got time off like this, it's very important that any money that you've got in savings is utilising the best interest rates possible. Now, some people may say, oh, I can't be bothered, it's not worth it. Well, let me give you an example. If somebody's got £10,000 on savings with a normal bank in their deposit savings accounts or current accounts, or you put that money into an instant access savings account, a good one, which can earn you 1.2% at the moment, it means that it will give you an extra portion of interest for 10 grand of £10 a month. Now, let's swing it round. The question I would ask you is, if you've got the 10,000 a month, are you prepared to go on the last day of every month, take a £10 note and flush it down the toilet? Because that's exactly what you're doing by not utilising your savings properly. So you can actually hook in an account, very straightforward, into your current account and take 1.2%. And obviously the more money in savings you've got, the more money you can save. So that's as far as instant access is concerned. If you are prepared to have the money on notice, let's say with 90 days notice, you can increase that rate from 1.2% up to 1.6%. And that's if you just require 90 days access before you adopt your savings. For those of you that have got cash ISAs, and they might be historic going back many years, you are able to transfer from cash ISA to cash ISA. And at the moment, the best rate out there is 1.01%. The average rate of cash ISAs out there at the moment is 0.12%. So it's just about 1% more. So if you've got 20,000 sitting in a cash ISA, that is the equivalent of around about £17 a month that you are wasting. Money matters. Make sure you move to the right account. And finally, for business accounts, if you've got a business with money in it, you can earn over 1% interest, instant access now on a business account. It means that whilst you're not utilising it, you can have it on savings and earn 1% interest. Very important for businesses because it's additional money that you otherwise would not get if the money is just left in your current account or left in your bank's average savings account. So while you have this time to spare, which is everybody has at the moment, put your affairs in order. I've covered lots of things like wills and that before, but in terms of savings accounts, put your affairs in order because money makes money in this world. So if anybody wants any help on what savings accounts, by all means contact me. You can message me through Facebook, and I will speak to you as I've done with many people over the last few weeks. So I've covered all the things I'm going to cover then. One thing about investments, just very simply before I go, we've seen a general rise in the market over the last week. The UK fund price has only run to Thursday because it was shut on Friday, but the American market moved upwards on Friday, and we are still seeing that'll be 6 weeks out of 7 now, where funds that I have under management have now increased. So we're delighted with the way things are going for clients. This week Olivia's not here, but we've got Josh's half Kate running the questions. So do we have any, Kate?
Yeah, we've got a few. So first we've got from Giulio Magliano, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. What are your thoughts on the £31 billion merger between Virgin Media and O2 by competing against Sky and BT? Do you think it's the right choice of investment during this difficult financial period? Great work with your weekly live videos.
Thank you very much. As far as investment is concerned, I don't think that anybody should invest in one particular company because it's too risky. If you pick a top line advisor like me and a top fund manager that we choose together, you can delegate that responsibility as to what shares to hold to the fund manager, who will decide when to buy and when to sell individual stocks. 99.7% of the public who buy shares themselves earn less or lose more than those receiving qualified advice. So I don't do individual shares myself. There is no need. I make enough money with controlled risk and with experts looking after my money, knowing full well which experts to trust. But I think in terms of the merging, I think it's a very good idea for them because they will now be able to rival Sky and BT, both on digital platforms and everything else. So I think it's a very good move for the organisations. But as to whether to buy into them, you know, I don't know personally whether it's overvalued now or undervalued, and I'd rather leave that to people that know, and that's what I do, but I pass it on. I don't do individual stocks, I do sort of financial strategies for people.
Okay, the next one's from Martine Joseph. She says, will boxers have to do medicals this year?
Yes. What's going to happen with boxers is the board are suspending their licences for the amount of time that boxing is suspended, and I hope that will be not for when Eddie and Frank are back. I think that's when everybody else is back. So if a boxer, for example, is out, if it's suspended for 6 months, they will get a 6 month extension at the end of their period, but it's not going to stop them renewing their medicals. So the medicals will still be due. However, if they're not going to box for a while, then in effect what you can do is they won't need to renew their medicals until 2 weeks before they're going to box again. So in reality, if their medical is due in July and they don't fight until January next year, they're not really going to lose a lot out of it because they can defer their medicals. They don't have to take the medicals a year after, so you can suspend it. So unless they are boxing, I don't think boxers are going to be at a loss, to be honest.
Okay, and sticking with boxing for a minute, we've got the same question from Jack Newham and Connor Wright saying, what will happen to the boxers that have got to sell tickets to make their money?
Makes no difference, because what happens to the promoters, really good question, but this is why boxing isn't coming back this year, in my opinion, because it's as you know, both of you know, you've done ticket selling and it's really difficult. But when you've got when a promoter is promoting a show, whichever promoter that is without TV revenue, the margins are so small between profit and loss, so the promoters can't stage shows without that. So until everything is back to normal, and when boxers can sell tickets, promoters can sell tickets, or promoters can get other revenue in, small hall boxing isn't going to exist in the way that you know it. And that's why there needs to be a vaccine so that boxers will be able to go back and sell tickets again. I think that The government are putting a lot of money into the economy. There will be some damage, but I think it's going to be a thing where some small promoters will go out of business. Others will have to navigate around that. We as a promotional group are looking at other ways to try and help, but the general rule is across the industry it changes nothing for the boxers or the promoters at the lower level, I'm afraid, and that's cutting, and it will mean a lot of boxers some boxers may struggle to sell. I don't know, it depends on what happens, but that's why small hall boxing with ticket selling cannot really come back until the majority of the public have confidence that they can go out again.
Okay, so Karina says, nice bright stripy shirt. We
Okay.
saw the return of UFC last night with 249 in Florida. Is it profit before people with Dana White, particularly with one fighter pulling out after testing positive? And could this set a precedent for big boxing promoters to start looking at Florida shows?
Of course it's profit before people. A lot of decisions in life, it depends, you have a thing in life, everybody is different. People will make decisions according to money, or people will make decisions according to health. So it's health or wealth. Of course that's what they did. That was a decision for profit. Over here we do have a boxing board of control that, I'd imagine they want to get boxing back as soon as possible, but you would hope that over here nobody's going to allow professional boxing to take place of any description until gyms are open and boxers are able to be fit. I hope that promoters over here won't do that, and I would hope that there's a little bit more ethics over here than there was with doing that show. But I can only speak for myself. I'm not a television promoter, but I would not be wanting to stage a show until it was really safe to do so.
Right, next question is from Colin Henry. He says, Steve,
My friend Colin.
will the main promoters, Warren and Hearts, ensure that they include many of the small promoters on their bill?
No, what they'll do, what they will try to do, in my opinion, is what's going to happen is TV companies, the boxing situation is that as it stands there'll be 5 fights per show. And I don't believe that the TV networks will accept a 7-0 prospect against 4 win and 18 lost journeyman. So they're going to try and get boxers from the small hall shows with positive records to go on their shows. But it won't necessarily. But they're not going to be looking to make even fights. They're going to want to put everything in their favour. So there's opportunities, but it's whether they're the right opportunities. And I don't want to see any of my boxers being overmatched and getting hurt in fights without proper preparation. If there are opportunities in what we consider to be fights that are worthwhile, I'd be encouraging my boxers to take part. If they have had adequate preparation, if the fight is one that I think they can win, and if they're being paid well enough. It's as simple as that. So there may be opportunities, but if they're the wrong opportunities, I would hope that managers and boxers would have the sense not to do the ones that don't make sense.
Okay, next one's from Sam Budgeon. He said, what is your stance on returning to boxing, small hall shows, regardless of what the government guidelines are? When would you feel happy to return?
Once there's a vaccine, and when the boxers are, because the small hall, you've got 2 issues. I don't think it's safe to do small hall boxing with big crowds without a vaccine. I would not be comfortable if there's 150, 200 deaths a day staging a boxing event. I just morally would not be comfortable doing that. If other promoters wanted to do it and my boxers wanted to fight on those other shows, that becomes their choice. But I don't want to be doing a show where I feel people could get infected in that show. So for me, I do believe that the way things are going, we will have a vaccine by the end of the year, and we hope that a vaccine could be developed before then, or maybe a treatment could be developed before then. But I think in reality, my gut feeling is March next year, although obviously we're open to going beforehand if it is safe and it makes sense.
Okay, we've got another one from Colin Henry. He said, what is a fair cost to pay to have a will, and how do you view your previous videos? Sorry.
Cost to get a will, if it's a basic will, £24. If you want any, message me, Colin, I'll tell you where to get it done. A very basic will be £24, and if you want a power of attorney, which is also very, very important, you could do them yourselves, and it's not very complicated now. £84 per power of attorney. If you go to a lawyer for a basic will and a power of attorney for 2 people, it can be upwards of £1,000. There's no need to pay that amount of money.
Okay, and to view the previous videos, they're on YouTube, aren't they?
Yeah, all the other videos, Colin, are on either Boxing Social, YouTube channel Boxing Social, they've got them on there, and the Goodwin Boxing YouTube channel has got them on there as well, so you can go back and look at them. The first 2 or 3 are not there, but I think from number 4, 3 or 4 onwards, they've been uploaded after the event. Or you could go back on my Facebook page, I think it's 1 and 2, and you can see them on there if you go back far enough.
Okay, and we've quickly got time from one more, which is Martin Theobald. He said, with pro boxing being correctly regulated, do you think there's a chance we will see some boxers cross over to the less regulated organisations if they start running shows, e.g. bare knuckle?
It's possible, I hope not. It's a really good question. But the risks are crazy. I hope boxers are not silly enough to go into the ring with an unregulated organisation. You know, we're talking about your lives here. And if you're out of the ring for a little period of time and you can go back in there safely and resume your career, I hope you make the right decisions and don't do crazy things. Some boxers they do, and we hope you're going to make good decisions that are guided by good people and don't make choices like that.
Okay, perfect. We have got one more actually.
Okay.
From Jordan Warren, he said, would you advise taking a bounce back loan whether it's needed or not for a limited company?
Yes. Because if you take a bounce back loan and you don't need it, put it in the account, the 1.01% business account loan, which means if you borrowed, say, 50,000, it would generate you £505 a year. It's £500 a year for nothing. Pay it back after 364 days, and you've made £500 for absolutely nothing. If you need any help, Jordan, give me a call. I'll help you out with it.
That's it.
Guys, thanks very much for watching. I hope you found it useful. We're all going to go and watch Boris now and listen to his pearls of wisdom. But we'll be on next week, and hopefully we'll be able to give you some more direction about when boxing realistically is going to be back in every single format. So thanks a lot for watching, and we'll speak to you next week.